Welcome to Beyond the Design. I'm your host, Cray Beaumont Flynn. Today we're joined by true creative multi-hyphenate, Sean Parker. Based in Wisconsin's Fox Valley, Sean is a self-taught designer, sci-fi author, seasoned renovator, YouTuber, now channeling his broad skill set into blossoming design practice. Whether he's restoring a century-old home or crafting new worlds through fiction, Sean brings a blend of precision, curiosity, and authenticity to everything he does. Let's explore the intersections of design, storytelling, and transformation beyond the design with Sean Parker. Well, Sean Parker, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, it's our pleasure to have you, and thank you for taking the time. I'm just going to run off and go with some questions, and let's get this show started.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Well, take us back a little bit where it all began. What was your earliest creative moment?
Earliest creative moment. So I think that I was always a kid that was looking to get attention. I was the youngest of three. So, trying to be the original one was not always the easiest because I had to, you kind of learn through osmosis and watch your older siblings. But, as young me was very much about writing short stories. Around 6 or 7, I started rearranging my bedroom every couple months because I was big enough to move the furniture. And I remember my mom, I'd call her upstairs to come and take a look at it and have the door shut. And I'd hold my hand out and I'd say, "Tickets, please." And she'd slap my hand. And we'd go into my room and I'd show off this, look at this thing that I did with the stuff I already had. And, get the appropriate reaction from her. But, I was always trying to find my niche was it art? Was it writing? Was it, something else? But for me, especially, we moved to Wisconsin from California when I was 12. I was very quiet when we moved and became very pulled into myself. So through high school, very quiet, didn't want anyone looking at me ever for anything because I was just shy. And I started writing books in high school, short stories that turned into books. And in 2012, I'd say the big creative thing for me was I recorded a year of my life. Are you familiar with a golden birthday?
Yes.
Okay, so I turned 26 the day after Christmas and decided that 2012 was going to be my golden year. I was going to do 26 new and golden things that I had never done before. And the biggest part of it was you're going to document the whole thing. So that was probably the first foray into media and showing life through a very honest filter of just
right
what things were. And yeah, that's I think that's where that comes from. Always wanting to show something, always needing to one up myself and do better and bigger.
It's funny that you mentioned, you used to change your room out, because I think a lot of creatives that have gone into the design industry, that's how it started for them. It's like, oh, I should change my room out every, week, every month, and
Yes.
Parents would come home and the whole family room or living room had been rearranged. It's like, yeah, that's probably a good sign.
Oh yeah. Things go missing and they turn up in the bedroom that it'd look better in here. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, how did growing up in Southern California shape your sense of style and creativity? Because it's a lot different, from California design aesthetics to what you're actually doing now in your own environment in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm. I'd say growing up in California, we were in proximity more so to things to see and do on a regular basis. I can remember as a kid going to the Winchester Mystery House in San Jose and, seeing this. Have you ever been to that?
I have.
You have this
I did get scared.
Yeah. It's, also, you get a little entranced by the spooky ghost stories that go with it. But seeing this grandeur, and in Redlands, where I'm from originally, there was a lot of history there. Redlands they called it the Inland Empire in California, because that's where the train tracks ended for people vacationing from Los Angeles in the early 1900s. So a lot of history, a lot of really neat houses. Growing up with that, you just got used to it. And then when we moved to Wisconsin, everything in the town we moved to was primarily built in the 80s. It's not as open concept. Everything is rooms, because you're heating rooms, for a good 5 months out of the year. And it was just different. And since then, in 2012, I had started working for Pottery Barn, and I followed them a bit around the country. So it was interesting to see just, from Wisconsin to Austin, Texas. Austin was also very different in how things were built. So
True.
I've been able to kind of dabble my fingers in all these pots to, just to see what sticks and what I like best. There are definitely things that I'm better at than others for an aesthetic, but I've been able to immerse myself in a lot.
Well, as you mentioned, you've moved around quite a bit from Southern California to Austin, Minneapolis, and now Wisconsin. How has geography influenced your aesthetic or your mindset of how you approach design?
That's a good question. I think that, living in Texas, I was working for West Elm at the time. I'd gone down, and West Elm's, the core of the business is very mid-century modern. I didn't jive as well with that as I had with Pottery Barn. So moving back up to Minneapolis into the cold, it was this really interesting happy medium between what Austin was like and what Wisconsin was like, because it's much more of a melting pot of cultures and architecture, and there's all sorts of interesting things to see and do. But I think that living in the North just worked better for me in terms of finding a style that I could work with, because I like to, in the North, it's a bit less open concept. New construction is all open concept and just big bare rooms. But most of the houses up here are rooms, and rooms lend themselves more to creating moments rather than, sprawling scapes. And that was what I found my interest was, these moments.
Can you remember, besides your bedroom, the first space you ever designed or redesigned, and what made it special?
Oh, Lord. I can, if we're going to move beyond living with my parents and because, eventually you get old enough that you're like, now I can paint it, now I can have this navy blue and yellow with a celestial bedspread. I think it would really have to be my first house. I bought my first house in 2018 in North Minneapolis, and I refer to it as the Manor. And the very first rooms that I wanted to paint were the living room and the dining. And I was dead set on painting them black. It was just, at the time, it was such a whoa, you can't paint black. And everyone had the same reaction. You can't paint black. And I just thought, no, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. Because this house was a Crayola box of colors inside when I bought it. And those two rooms were painted like a key lime pie green, and the ceiling was to match. So I did it, and that black aesthetic just kind of cemented my opinion on what I wanted to do in spaces and really set the pace for everything else. Because I think if you can comfortably paint something black and have it work, it really removes the fear of using any other color, at least any other dark color. I don't want to, canary yellow is probably not in my my repertoire, but never say never. But I just remember, doing the black rooms, and there was a lot of white accents to keep it light, and all the original woodwork, and then incorporating this giant mirror that I still have that had a lot of brass on it. And it was the first time I was able to, from scratch, create something that I wasn't going to have to change when I moved out. It was just, this is the space. And I was happy with it. And I never changed it either. By the time I moved out, I had never done any reworkings of that.
So you never second guessed yourself.
No, specifically there. Everywhere else, sure, but not there. Out of the gate, I was a winner.
So I came across you and your show through an Instagram feed. What inspired the name of your YouTube channel, Restoring Sean, and what story does it tell, or you want to tell to the viewer?
That is a great question. After high school, I went the retail route. I did college for a year, and then it wasn't for me. I kept just messing around and not being serious. So in the retail route, the first 10 years were in a clothing retailer that there was no stress. There wasn't a lot of anxiety that came with the job. So I could still work on my writing on the side. Mm-hmm. When I started with Pottery Barn, it was a much more elevated position. And with more money come more problems and responsibilities. Right. And slowly but surely, it's 10 years later and you don't write anymore. You don't film content or write blogs. I'd gone through, 2 failed relationships, and just at that time also, we had just gone through COVID. Living in Minneapolis, I'd just gone through George Floyd. So it was just in this funk of an existence. And at the end of 2022, I was able to leave retail to start a remote job, and started finding that I kind of had idle hands. And I had all of this content for the first 2 houses. So there was the manor, which was built in 1914. Then there was the appropriately named ranch that was built in 1972. And I wanted to show what I had done. I wanted, that kid in me still wanted to do the show and tell of here was the before, here's the before, and here's the after. But I didn't know how to do that. So I started the Instagram channel and just kept making these teases of like, oh, something's coming. I'll say, get ready, something's coming, even though I had no idea what it would be. And working remote enabled me to move back to Wisconsin. So after a few months, it started clicking. Maybe this should be a YouTube thing, because then you can talk, and it's not just images with some words, but it's sharing the stories. I love stories and going through these. So as that was all kind of coming to fruition, it was really about finding a path back to this person that I used to be, that wanted to create and share and just kind of, I don't want to say recklessly, but just barrel forward with these ideas that aren't always the safest ones, whether that's design or life or creating a YouTube channel and putting it all out to air. But that was what the restoring really kind of referred to. And, going through those houses, this 4.5 year period of my life enabled me to kind of revisit some of the bad memories that came with them and officially sort of put them back to bed and move forward. So when I had finished season 2, which was last summer, and the ranch, I remember saying at the end of it that I felt restored, because I felt good, but I didn't feel like I could call the channel Restored Sean, because I didn't have the same ring to it.
Yeah, people might think of something else. What happened?
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah, it's very real, in a world of reality shows, but it's very real because you're not scripted, and it's off the cuff, and you talk about more than just, what you're doing.
Yeah, because a lot of it, life influences a lot of the design and where you're at, perhaps mentally in some of these spots. So being able to share that not that you need to explain why you painted one wall this color or used this metal finish on your window hardware, but sometimes the story that goes with it resonates with people.
Exactly. Because if you're having it, that means someone else is having that thought as well. So
yes.
And plus you have a cute little furry sidekick.
I do. And, right now they're nowhere, but earlier I couldn't get them off my lap. So, I have two 15-year-old cats that I got them when they were about a week old. They were found under a hot tub in Green Bay by animal control and been mine since, bottle fed and heating blankets and everything. So,
well, you've mentioned you're a jack of all trades Capricorn. How does that translate into your creative process?
Obsession. I think, Capricorns were known for a very steadfast work ethic where we want to work all the time. And for me, it is this striving for excellence and that you can always be better. And what that translated to was, I get caught up a little bit in wanting to be excellent and project this, I suppose, calm demeanor of look at these things that I'm doing and they're very good, aren't they? It's because I'm wanting to inspire people. And over time, I have found the best way to do that is through transparency. So, and in honesty. So like with my channel, over the years, I would watch these YouTube channels and think, well, I can kind of do that, but it looks really good when they do it. So I'm not that good. And one of my favorite channels that I follow had done a baby's room and did wainscoting all along the bottom. And again, falling into that mindset of I can't do it that well. And she did a close up with the camera work. And I saw very similar, I don't want to say mistakes, but very similar appearances of caulking that I had done. And it just clicked. No, they just don't show the bad stuff. They show only the perfect. And I thought, if I were to show through this and all of my hard work, it's not perfect. It is accessible. You can do this too. I thought that was my angle. But to get there, it had to be done through genuine expression. And a lot of times that means going back to the beginning where people have commented, you've already done this, like this room I'm in right now. This has already been repainted once. So when I started gutting this room this spring, people kept saying, but you've already done it. Well, I know, but it could be better. So I'm going to do that. And I have had the drive. Now I'm a little burnt out on it. But, I think for the jack of all trades Capricorn, it's just always trying to better myself and reach the next step. What's working, what's not. Okay, that's not working. Pivot to the next thing.
Do you think it's also the want or need to take risk and be challenged?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because a lot of what I come up with or came up against specifically in this room, I had no idea how to fix it. This room, it's a 132-year-old house, and the corner straight above me was 3.5 inches higher than the other corners in the room. And I thought it was just the floor that had an angle, but figuring out it was the ceiling and that it was sheetrock on top of plaster and lathing. How do you fix it? Well, so a lot of it's just spent standing in a room in silence for half an hour with your arms closed, staring until you come up with it. And I'm honest in the channel that it's not always the right way to do it. But if it's not the right way, I'll figure it out and I'll share that.
What does design mean to you, and how do you define your own personal style, especially when you you've lived in different various homes of different age. So is
Mhm.
there a style that you kind of translate from those homes?
You know, what's funny is that my aesthetic, it came about towards the end of living at the manor. So it was during the COVID days, and I wanted to get these apothecary jars that, no, I had some apothecary jars, but I never put them out. So as I started tinkering with things, because our store was closed for 2 months, it started dawning on me what I liked as a style, and it is dark academia. So it's mixing a little bit of macabre with this kind of academic look and darker colors and rich textures. And over the years since then, it's funny because I didn't grow up in that at all. You know, we grew up in beige walls and, you know, that just what was safe. And I remember my dad, when they redid the basement in our home in Wisconsin, he picked out this carpet for the basement that was very hotel lobby carpet. It was like a burgundy red. I think he initially wanted a burgundy red, and then it ended up being an emerald green. And I think my bolder choices come from him. He just never really acted on them growing up. So my style is much more moody, dark. But that being said, I work with clients that is absolutely not their style, and I can very easily pivot to what works for them. So,
is there one design rule you always follow, or one you always break?
One I always follow, at least from inception of a space, is that less is more. You know, because a lot of times, especially this house, you know, the first round of redoing everything, I called it phase 1. Which was really the broad strokes. Get your paint colors done, get your furniture in place, lighting. Now what do you need? Whereas, you know, if I've had people in the past say, I've purchased all of this stuff. I've seen all these things from these inspiration pictures, and I bought all of it. And let's put it in this room. You start doing it and realize there's too much in here, or it's overkill of a certain finish. So I always follow less is more, because you can always add. You can always add. Yeah. But subtracting, especially once you've, you know, passed the statute of limitations for returns, like it gets a little hairier.
True.
For one that I break, I don't know. I think people are starting to shift out of it, but just the mindset that dark colors automatically shrink a space. I just firmly don't subscribe to it.
Oh, it's a misconception.
It absolutely is. And like, you know, I'll be honest, the room on the other side of the wall perhaps is too small to be the color that it is, which is one shade darker than this green. So it's going to get repainted anyway. But I think for the most part, what people are surprised about is that painting dark colors or color drenching in dark, it kind of makes the corners disappear. And the room, you can't really tell then where it ends, which I think is great, because I like the mystery of that.
It's more seamless where yeah, very true.
Absolutely. Or, you know, if you're doing dark walls and a white ceiling, even then it's not the mystery. It's the, okay, now you just have this. But I think break the rules of don't be afraid of dark colors, because they're great.
Yeah, I'm a true believer. I've always wanted to do my entry black, but we'll see. Maybe I'll take the leap.
Yeah, it'll happen.
Well, renovation is a lot more labor intensive than new construction. There's a lot more time and effort that has to go into it, and you're incredibly hands-on. How do you approach learning something new when tackling a home project or a restoration?
I'll say my dad has asked me about this a lot too, because if I talk to him about some things, he'll just say like, I don't know how you learned that. And I think the great thing about the internet and the accessibility of information is that when there is something I don't know how to do, I can Google it, or I can search on YouTube. And I am prone to finding three sources on a specific topic and sort of combining what is the common denominator of how they did this. So that's at least the base. And then was there something that spoke to me and how they handled it that is easier for me to do, and they still ended up with the same result. So big fan of that. But a lot of times I can just turn to my dad and ask him because he's, he just knows things. I think that's a thing with a lot of parents, right? They just intrinsically know the answer.
Yeah, they're supposed to. It's their job.
Yes.
Is there a particular material or a technique that you love working with most, or is there a go-to for you?
Oh, goodness. Well, that's tricky. I think the artist in me, the drawing person and painting person, I love paint. I think you can do miracles with paint, whether that's, you have a small space, you want to feel bigger, painting it all dark disappears. But I've honed my skills with, I've really only ever used Sherwin-Williams paint. And I know it well enough now that I know how different sheens will react in different spaces and colors. Because in the last 7 years for my own homes, I've probably gone through 30 colors of paint and seen varying successes of how those work. So I love paint. And I think that with paint, sometimes when people want to, redesign a space and breathe new life into it, it's not as complex as buying a bunch of new furniture and redoing all your gallery walls. True, yeah. Sometimes it's just get a new color of paint on there and it changes the entire feeling. And maybe some new textiles, but so probably paint.
Another creative outlet for you is writing. You've written and published, is it 4 science fiction novels? What drives your storytelling in that medium?
That's a great question. My best friend Katie, when 8th grade had ended and X-Men had come out that summer. So this is, 25 years ago. And I remember we were walking her dogs and talking about if we had powers, if we had superpowers, what would we do? And we went home and picked out names from a baby book that her mom had. And we wrote our independent stories in these red notebooks. And I think at the time, mine was very much influenced by X-Men and The Craft because, a lot of my generation loved The Craft. But over the months that followed, I would rewrite the story and then I'd rewrite it again. And then I would hand it off to her to read it and say, okay, here, it's 50 pages now. And then a year later, I'd be like, it's 180 now. And she would always read it and give me her thoughts. And that's how the first 2 books came about. It was always supposed to be a 3-book series. And I had rough ideas of what the third would be. But as I started writing it, it became apparent that the story doesn't wrap up with this because you've left a lot of loose ends. There's a villain that has kind of taken over where you can't wrap that up super quick. So it's going to be Thor. And I think a lot of what pushed me was I wanted to know what was going to happen too, because a lot of what I do when I write, specifically when I'm writing fiction, I'll have kind of a point A and point B for the story, but I don't know how I'm going to get there in between. So it's the free flow of thought where, with the last book, it was like, well, you just killed a main character. That wasn't planned, but it happened, and it happened pretty organically. So I think that was really the motivation behind it. And also, ultimately, it was to finish what you started. I need to finish what I start. I don't like leaving loose ends and leaving things up to guessing. So.
Well, how does that experience as a novelist influence your approach to design, if at all?
I think it leads into the design in the sense of I want to know what's going to happen with this too.
Mhm.
This room, as phase 2 of this house kicked off, this was the first room that was, okay, you are designing every granular detail of this space. But I think a lot of people would agree, and maybe you agree, you can only really design so far in before certain things happen and conditions might change, and you need to sort of adapt to that. So I think with this space, wanting to see how a story finishes is what compels me to finish this too, because I kept collecting these antique books. I was on Facebook Marketplace all the time trying to hunt them down and not being ripped off by some people want $20 and you're like, it's not worth anything. This is Decac,
Right.
but just kind of hoarding all of this stuff in my laundry room for the months that this took, that when I started bringing it all in and putting into the space, it was really crossing the T's and dotting the I's on this elusive image, right? Where you might have concept drawings and you have mood boards, but until you actually get it there in front of you on a shelf, you don't know what it's going to feel like.
Right.
So, and I wanted to get to that feeling. Hopefully it's a good one, but I wanted to get to the feeling.
Well, you have a sense of accomplishment, I guess, at that point, that you've taken it to where it needed to be, and the story's been fulfilled, I guess, in all aspects. Yeah. Yeah.
The video that came out today actually goes into the trim boxes for the walls, and that video, going back and looking at what the space was, the coffered ceilings, and adding all of that in, you forget how hard it was and how ugly it was for a time. So there is such a, cutting these things together, there is such a feeling of accomplishment and achievement that you set out to do something and it's done, and now you can cross it off your list.
With so much going on in your life, what's your routine or ritual that keeps you grounded and inspired amongst all of your projects, be it writing versus, your show and designing and, everything you're doing? You're juggling.
There's a lot of juggling. I think, for a routine, because I am so busy, my work days typically start at 6 a.m., 6:30. I will do my desk job till about 4:30, and then it's client work or housework. And if it's not one of those, it's editing videos, because those take 10 to 12 hours to cut together. Because, sometimes it's, I think next week's episode is 29 hours of footage to sort through. So my time that is protected, that keeps me grounded, is my morning, because I will get up and I'll just sort of dawdle. It's my time to not have calls coming in or text messages, to not be on screens. And it's just to have some coffee and sit with the cats and just,
I get that. Yep.
Be there, because sometimes, life gets in the way, and sometimes it's the end of a workday and I just need to go outside and stand in the grass, because you just need to touch grass sometimes.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that's what keeps me grounded. I arguably lose sight of protecting my mental health with some of this, because, the channel was very slow to start, and which was okay. But in my mind, I started accepting that maybe you're just sharing these things for a very small group of people. And when it's done, and you'll know you did it and you didn't give up. But in October, the Halloween videos for decorating for Halloween kind of drew a certain audience. And then the Christmas videos really drew up. People love a tree getting decorated. I'll tell you that. The YouTube channel sort of turned into its own monster, and feeding the monster it's a lot. It's a lot of time. Yeah.
It's a full-time job.
It is. So, it can be tough to stay grounded and to, take the time to just go have dinner with a friend or go sit with a friend. And I need to protect that more.
Mm-hmm. I get that. Or you just need that quiet time where there's no noise and no interruptions, and all you hear is, and you can actually hear the birds chirping or the breeze in the trees.
It's so funny how as things get more stressful, I always handled stress well. Retail is stressful. It's funny that as you get more stressed out, and there is a constant stream of communication coming from a variety of sources, I'll see messages on my phone, and it's like I acknowledge that it's there, but I won't read it because for whatever reason in my mind, it's like I can that's fine. I don't need to answer that right now, but it weighs. And finding that balance it could be a challenge.
Mm-hmm. You have to make time for that time.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, what does rest look like for someone who seems to be always in motion and
to be determined? A lot of times, evenings, I will try to wrap up what I'm doing by about 10, and then it's shower, and I might catch up on a show. But it is funny how some friends will ask, have you started watching this? It's like, with what time do you think I have? Everything has to be scheduled and, sorted out. So rest, I think with this drawing room series for the channel ending in a couple weeks, I am taking a few months off from posting content on YouTube. That's not to say I won't be working on projects still and filming, but removing that aspect and feeling like there's a deadline to, it's Sunday and you haven't started editing yet. So now, the next several days you have to do this. Mm-hmm. It starts to pull the joy out of it. So going forward, again, linking back to protecting your mental health and finding time, I just need to pull back.
All right.
Pull back and calm down.
As they say, breathe.
Breathe. Yes.
Breathe. Well, what do your 2 15-year-old cats think of your design choices, or just all the noise going on for them?
It's funny. They're so great because they, I like my movies loud. I've always liked that, and I think from an early age they just got used to noise. They obviously moved to Texas with me and Minnesota and then a few places there. When this room started, they made themselves very scarce because it was really loud. And I underestimated the level of dust that the house experienced during this. But they, once the furniture started coming back into this room, they started showing up more and being, their sweet selves rather than standing at the top of the stairs and watching discontentedly.
They're like, ouch.
Yeah.
What are you doing now?
Yeah. You can always tell, like when you've had a pet that long, you can, you have a little bit more insight into their personality, and there's certain things that they would do that it was like, you're not happy with me right now.
Right.
Sorry.
Well, as someone who's very self-driven, what motivates you to keep pushing forward?
I think I have this insatiable curiosity of what's coming. I think before really settling into the design aspect of my life, and that I wanted that to be my profession going forward, I was just constantly trying on different hats. And, does this fit? Does this fit? I published 4 books, but kept a day job. So I'll let you come to your conclusion on that. But it was always trying to find what's this thing that's going to satisfy me, both creatively and socially. It's because getting the remote job, most of my team is based in Arizona, and I do get to work with my best friend, which is great, but going from 20 years in retail to sitting at home alone on a computer, you really do miss engaging with people.
True. Yeah.
So part of this is to maintain an engagement. That's whether it's people commenting on things that you get to, some people ask really interesting questions on YouTube, which is great. Because it gets you to think and come up with your answer. Some people just want to yell at you because you painted wood trim. God forbid, worst thing in the world. But I think what motivates me to do this is just curiosity. I when you reached out to schedule this, it never crossed my mind that someone would ever want to talk to me on a podcast. And I just thought, well, what's next then?
Yeah.
Keep doing it and keep trying. And it can be discouraging, especially when you're starting out in these things. It's very discouraging, and you don't know where to stack your blocks. But what I learned is that, like, it's not necessarily better to stack them in a million directions.
True.
But over time you start learning where to reposition. And that's what's been happening. So I'm motivated to keep finding out.
And I think it's also, if it doesn't work, then you have to ask yourself, what's next? Instead of just stopping and like, it didn't work, so I'm shutting down or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't want to just throw the towel in and give up. But also there does come a point where you're like, you need to stop.
Be a little obsessive, compulsive. Yeah. Is there a mantra or a Sean Parker philosophy that you come back to when things get tough?
There is actually. I have gone through a couple relationships that were never great, or were great at the time, but just didn't end great. And after one of them, it'd been several months, and I decided to get a tattoo of a quote from a movie called Unfaithful, if you've ever seen it, with Diane Lane. But there's a quote in it by Omar Khayyam, and it is, "Be happy for this moment. This moment is your life." I have that tattooed on my arm, and it is something that I try to remember all the time, because when I filmed the 26 Golden Things project, it was all about understanding that every moment that we're in, good or bad, it's another chance to change things. And a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times we are victims of our own circumstances, and you can change them. Sometimes it's harder to change them. Sometimes it's easy, but that is the mantra that, a lot of this is just a blip in time, but keeping your eyes on the big picture and, a weather eye on the horizon helps.
True. Yeah. And you have to make yourself happy. It might be a little selfish or self-centered, but at the end of the day, you have to be happy. And tomorrow's another day, and tomorrow will take care of itself, and it's a restart.
It is a restart. Every day is a new start. So, yeah.
What's something surprising people don't expect when they meet you or see your work?
People are usually very surprised that how big I am. I think I've said it in the videos a lot. I'm 6'4". I'm very broad, but I think when people see it, there's a very like, oh, you're not kidding.
Right.
You are a wall. So I think that, but aside from that, I think something with the design is, going back to the black walls at the first house, and in this house, from day one, the parlor, I wanted to paint the ceiling black and the top third of those walls black. And the amount of people, you can't do that. You can't paint a ceiling black. You can't do this. And how all of them pivoted back to like, oh no, it actually works. No, that looks okay. And usually the ones that say it's okay were the biggest doubters, and they just don't want to admit when they were wrong. But I think a a choice of dark colors is often the thing that people are surprised about, that they might not think it works because they were trained, growing up. My mom always said, you can paint whatever color you want, just don't paint black. And I think when people get to see a lot of these things in person, they realize there's nothing scary about a color. You know, there's some colors that are scary, but in in a space when done well.
True. And it's about interpretation, and it's about personality and their experiential environments that makes them happy.
Yes, absolutely. Because what I want and what makes me feel good in a space, it's not one size fits all.
True.
It's design. It's an expression. So,
Well, tell us a little bit about your current project, Sean.
Oh, goodness. The drawing room. So when I bought the house, lovingly called the estate, which on YouTube, people thought I was being pretentious and calling it the estate because it's, I remember one person commenting and saying, that's just a clapboard house in a neighborhood. It's like, well, it is called the estate because it was sold by the surviving children of a family that owned it for 70 years. It was an estate sale. So that's where the name came from.
It fits.
It fits. So they bought the house in 1952, and they had both passed, in recent years. But apart from a major renovation in the 60s, where most of the character was pulled out, and then after a fire in the early 80s that burned the second floor out, the house had not been touched. So step one was just cleaning it up. Rip all the 90% of the house was carpeted. So get all the carpeting out, refinish the floors. Everything was painted, wallpaper was taken down, the works. So with this room and kicking off phase 2, I wanted to bring character back into the home. So when I had taken up the carpet in this room, the entry to it, there was a shadow on each side of the room in the floor where that indicated some sort of a wall had been there. And one of the surviving daughters came about a year later and said that there used to be pocket doors there that her parents took out. So it was always in the back of my mind. It's that little seed that gets planted in a designer's mind of like, well, what if,
right.
what if I did this? And over time, this idea really formed that I wanted to add a transom wall of windows to create a foyer and this drawing room. Technically this room should have been the parlor, but I already used the name somewhere else. So I thought, well, I'll just do a drawing room instead, and that's fine. So for the drawing room, in addition to the transom wall, I didn't want to just have, again, 3 walls. I wanted detail. So I built the built-ins here. The wall that this is on is extra thick because there had been a pocket door at one point in this as well. So, all right, I can use that to my advantage and do the built-ins and reroute some of the HVAC because that was all done interestingly over time. And I could add the coffered ceiling. So bringing that down and adding that architectural element, it's just transformed this whole space in a way I really couldn't have imagined. And what's funny about it is that before this project started, I love to have Halloween parties and Christmas parties and have people over when I can. People were typically impressed with the house and, oh, this looks so great. This looks so nice. What's funny about it is that now this room has so much detail and is so neat that the rest of the house does not match it at all. And not that it looks rough, but the rest of the house, I think the question going forward is, well, what are you going to do to this room then? How are you going to elevate this next space? So my plan going forward is truly re-examining every area of the house and how can you make this more interesting? Because it's just your imagination. It's and it's limitless. But physically there are limits, but in your mind, what can you dream up? True. And then how can you put it to reality.
So what's your vision for your design business moving forward?
I think that's twofold. The design business, when I kicked it off, it was, I'll do anything. I'll do anything and I'll help anybody with anything they want, ever. You start honing that back where you start realizing there are things you don't want to do. I remember the first time someone just sent an image of a room and said, can you just source this furniture for me? And I thought, well, I don't want to do that because that's not design. That's already been designed.
Right.
And I don't want to do that. So I think going forward, the physical part of this job, for lack of a better word, I want that to be in my home. And the physical part is for YouTube and showing people how you can do this and what you can create and build and explaining it. And I want the design part to be much more design focused. And that way, as things continue to establish and grow, I can hire out local trade people or local artisans that are maybe looking for their start. And how can I bring them in, based on work that, one, hits a level that I trust and believe in, but two, do they have stories they want to tell? And do they want to learn more about design? And how can I work with them on that? Because I've worked for a lot of people, a lot of corporations, and I just think there's something very special about working hand in hand with people.
True.
So it's kind of a twofold direction.
Well, design in a lot of ways is about collaboration and collective ideas.
Yes.
And bringing that together. Are there any dream projects or collaborations you hope to pursue?
Well, I'd like to, everyone's got their thing, right? And I'd like to figure out what my thing is, which is probably along the lines of, decorative accessories. Because I like having a touch of whimsy in everything that I do. Something where the closer you look, the more you start noticing things. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times finding those little bits and pieces can be difficult. I've had a hard time finding them. So I'd like to, one, establish what that deck act could look like. But then two, it would really just be kind of a full circle thing for me if I was to partner with Pottery Barn and they would have my collection. And maybe that's a collection for Halloween or Christmas and it's just a one-off, but they do these partnerships. But that would really, I think, be you've come all the way around.
Full circle, right?
Full circle. You've got things on the shelves at the store you used to work at. So
right. Hey, stranger things have happened.
Stranger things have happened.
Yeah. If someone just discovered your work, where should they start? Your books, your channel, your designs?
I'd say probably the channel. I think with the channel, if someone has the time to start from the beginning, it is a journey. It is a journey of watching, really what my design started as, which, at the time I was trained by Pottery Barn. I did things the way they trained you to, which isn't to say it was the wrong way by any means, but it is a specific way of decorating and setting a room. And as I have found my design voice over the next several years, you can watch that transition through the channel. And I think if you don't like my personality from the channel, you're not going to like me, because it's pretty close to reality. Editing does a wonderful job, but I think hopefully I come across as genuine as I am in real life, just because I like to laugh. I've refrained from swearing this whole time, but I do have a foul mouth, so I think that's another important factor.
We're not censored. We've had the F-bomb on here a few times, so if there's a need,
for emphasis, So I'd say that the channel would be the place to start.
So what's next for Sean Parker?
What is next? So I have a few clients right now that one of them I'm very excited about. It's a a parent of a friend from high school who lost her husband recently, and in redoing spaces in her home, she has a very large, I guess it's a more of a formal family room. That's kind of its own wing off of the house. It's just a ranch house, but it extends behind the garage. It was added in the early 2000s. And she's really given me free reign on
nice
what she wants. And she likes this dark cottage core aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
And she, to the point that she has said, I don't care what paint colors you use. I don't want to see the wall mural that you choose or the furniture or anything. I just want to be surprised when it's done. So that's been really fun to start designing that. And that project kicks off probably in the next week. I'll get cracking on it. So there's that. A few other client projects that are scattered around the state and little things. But in terms of the channel, after mid-July, I'll be on a bit of a hiatus, but then I come back in October with 4 or 5 Halloween videos and projects, and then it'll pivot to Christmas. And then after the new year, we get back to work. I've got a whole foyer to show off how I'm refinishing that. The entire front of the house is currently torn off because of water damage. So there's that project, which leads to a
little one.
The primary bedroom being gutted and remodeled at the same time, because the whole front wall of the house is having all the windows and doors changed and moved. So there's a lot to come. There's a lot to come.
No, well, I don't want to say no end in sight, but
that's how it feels.
Yeah, sometimes, I'm sure. Yeah. But you have a story to tell us, which, I think is an excellent platform to do it.
Got a story to tell.
What are you most surprised about yourself as you self-reflect and started this journey that you're like, you didn't know about yourself?
I think perseverance. I don't want to say that I've been through more than anyone else in life, because we all go through our own things, good and bad. We all have our different experiences, and what affects one person one way may not the other. Mm-hmm. I have been very surprised, especially reflecting on the first 2 houses, how well I handled events that had come along. But with this house, the first house, the manor, ended up becoming a flip house unintentionally. The second house, I hated it from day one. It was a panic buy during a time when you could not buy a house because the market was so insane that every offer was rejected. This house is the first one that I've lived in that I have no intent to sell it. I love the community that I moved into, my proximity to family and friends. So what surprised me is that even not having this soft date in my mind of when I'm going to get out, I am still as perseverant in getting things done because I want to see what it's going to look like. I want to see it done. And that's probably surprised me the most. I thought I would have just settled into a mode of complacency and just been fine with, the flat walls and left it. But my perseverance people have commented on the past. You never see it really when it's you. It's hard to step out of your body and look at it. But this whole process has really shown me when you have to watch yourself for hours on end, you get to see how you come back from things. And that's been very enlightening and fun.
What does home mean to you?
That's a very layered question. That's a good question. What does home mean to me? I think home is an open term for not just a house, but a place. And, Northeast Wisconsin, I have a lot of friends that have moved away and found their way back. And we just had a big high school reunion, and a lot of people have found their way back. And there's just a a draw to this area that makes it feel like home. There's a comfort to it. It's a little bit slower. It's a little quieter. So from that aspect, I just feel like I'm home in general now. But in terms of a structure, this house just feels like sanctuary, and everyone that visits feels comfortable in this house. And it's kind of the midpoint for a lot of people. And, my sister's on one end of town and my parents are on the other. So this is the meeting point that's just easy. And that makes it feel even more like a home when it's not an inconvenience for people to get to it. Mm-hmm. It's just there, and the door's always open. So that's home.
Well, we've come to that time where we must wrap up. I'm sorry to say it's been a complete pleasure and a joy to have you on our show. Is there anything else you want to add or share or tell our audience today?
Oh, goodness. Well, check out the channel. So restoring_Sean on YouTube. And, typically videos are 6 a.m. Central Time on Wednesdays, which annoys some people, but, I wanted to buck the trend of Sunday video. So. Gotta be the true original when you're the youngest of 3. So.
Well, thank you so much, Sean. It's been such a joy and much continued success to you.
Thank you.
And, we'll continue on and we'll chat soon.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Cray. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon, my friend.
All right. Bye-bye.
That was Sean Parker, a creative force whose work, whether through design, renovation, or fiction, reminds us that reinvention is always possible when guided by curiosity and courage. To see more of Sean's journey, check out his YouTube channel, Restoring Sean, or follow along as he builds his design practice one beautiful project at a time. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave us a review if this episode inspired you to build, write, or reimagine something of your own. Until next time, keep going beyond the design.
Hi, you're listening to a Pod for Good Media Network podcast. We are a network that provides podcasting production services and a supportive community in which podcasters can thrive. If you're a podcaster local in the Tulsa area, we would love to have your show on the network. If you are interested in starting one, we would love to help you get started. Find us online at podforgoodmedia.com and fill out our Pod With Us form. Happy podcasting.